Each time I'm like, I'll just talk about my week and all the sort of wacky things I've been up to. But every week I'm like, I think I've done absolutely nothing. And I think my life is boring.
Well, you also don't want to live your life trying to be wacky each week.
What's the wackiest thing you've done in the last week?
The wackiest?
Yeah, the wackiest.
I've not been a wacky boy. No, not stuff I can talk about on a podcast.
Too wacky for TV.
Too wacky for audio, I think.
Right. And video.
And
Don't
video.
forget our the thousands of YouTube viewers.
Yeah.
So basically, what Luke is saying is, he's done work, he's eaten food, he's been to the gym, and he's had sex with women, but he can't talk about having sex with women. So,
Well, no, I can't have sex with women. I've moved into my mother's house for 2 weeks,
right.
which is sad.
So, what are the wacky things you can't talk about?
Well, I did have sex with and it was,
Okay.
but I don't want to mention that
okay,
at all.
let's not
And
talk about
I
that.
want that edited out of the podcast.
What if it's I did have sex with a beep, but I can't talk about that at all? And then I'm like, you had sex with a German Shepherd? Wait, are we talking dog or literal?
Oh my god. You'll just have to find out for the Patreon.
Yeah.
That's what we're about, baby. What wacky stuff? I think it's unnecessary to have pressure to be wacky each week.
Okay, I won't pressure you to be wacky each week. I played a board game with my girlfriend twice.
What, twice?
I played the Red Cathedral twice in a day, and I won both times.
Yes.
And I have an issue, which is that my girlfriend doesn't like playing board games with me as much as I would like, because I, no bragging here, beat her every time. Not every time, but, quite a lot. And she doesn't like that I beat her because she wants to win. But she says if I let her win, that she'd be furious and she'd break up with me. So she doesn't say she'd break up with me, but it's clear that that's not appropriate. So I'm trying to...
Has she ever defeated you in board games?
Yeah.
Okay.
Plenty of times. But, it's still a rare occurrence. But it's because I've played like so many board games, and because her ADHD means her like working memory is really bad, so she'll come up with an amazing strategy and then forget it immediately. But then when I played a game with you last week, Laura was quite pleased that I beat you.
What?
Because then...
Well, now I'm not on Laura's side
Well,
anymore.
because then it just means that I'm great and not that she's crap, which is true.
So I'm like the bar for if someone is great or not.
You're the bar for if someone is great or not. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm the gatekeeper.
The reason I paused there is because I was seeing if I could turn what you were saying around back into an insult.
Well,
But I realized
that's pretty
I
rude
realized
of
I
you.
didn't know that. I couldn't figure out the logic in my head. I was like, God, I don't think I can say this in any way that doesn't make Luke sound good. And I feel like
Well, you fell into my trap.
you know what I think the thing is I
Welcome to
think
my spider's
podcasts
web.
are so sort of masturbatory and self-indulgent
What?
in just inherently that
Oh.
for me to come on and be like, and God, you're such a wonderful boy. Look at you. You're such a lovely lad, big and strong and smart and clever. It's like, it's enough of a circle jerk. Just the fact that
Right.
I'm spending every week
I think I
sitting
would
in a
like,
room talking to you.
I think I would like that.
I know you would
podcast.
like that, but I'm
think
thinking
that would be
about
much
our
Listenership.
loyal listenership.
I
Yes.
think maybe they'd like it if you said nice things to me.
Okay. Well, we'll try that
Okay.
and see if see if our views skyrocket.
I think so. Bring some positivity into the world.
Okay. There was a thing we did at school where everyone in the class had to write down a nice thing about everyone else in the class. And it all got folded up, bits of paper, anonymously and given to everyone else. And it was like, and the teacher was like, you have to write nice things. This is not a chance for a joke. Write a genuinely nice thing about someone in the class.
And you all, was that like divvied up so like everyone would receive?
Everyone would receive 30 things, one from each person in the class.
Oh, you had to do that with every person?
Every person. So we sat in like silence for like half an hour. Really struggled with Marcus, the bully. Really struggled with him. Eventually, I wrote, "You are chatty." That was my compliment for Marcus. We were 12 years old.
You're fantastic at beating the shit out of me. Well done.
Anyway, these all got handed in, divvied up.
Yeah.
I went through all of mine. I can't remember what any of them said apart from one, which said, "You are a retard." This, I decided, was not acceptable. So I handed it back into Mr. Berger. And
Who's Mr. Burke?
Mr. Berger was our form tutor. And Mr. Berger launched an investigation in which all of my compliments had to be claimed by people in the class one at a time until the I am the retard writer was eventually discovered to be none other than Christian Mendola.
No. Was he a friend of yours? Was this like a knife in the back?
We were not friends, but neither were we enemies. I'd say we had a sort of a friendly-ish relationship.
Yeah. Were you upset? Were you sad?
No, well, the thing was, you see, I tried to talk about this with my therapist, and she was like, "That's very sad." And I was like, no, it's not sad. And I don't actually like you recontextualizing my childhood as sad. I like remembering it as absolutely fine. Thank you very much. But everyone had sort of like insulting names they were called. And, retard I sort of owned.
Right, okay. In what sense?
In the sense that, it was like, Sam's a retard, guys. Guys, it's fine. Guys, Sam's a retard.
Right.
I don't know if this is really translating. I also don't condone the use of the R word.
It's good to start switching to the R word after you've said it 8 times.
Well, yeah, I'm saying it in regards to me.
Yeah.
I would say I am a retard. Luke is an R word. For example.
Thank you.
Anyway, what was the point of that?
I don't know.
Why do I feel like crying?
Yeah, I don't know. You just suddenly started talking about your childhood.
Why do we start talking about this? Oh, because we talk about nice things and how they're not possible.
Yeah, I gave
and
you a
let's not
compliment.
try.
I gave you a compliment, and then you brought up
Yeah,
a really sad, upsetting childhood memory.
yeah, but it's good. Do you think that's good, like formative? Like, yeah, that's the kind of person that would crave validation and become a comedian.
What, the one who was pulled to the front of the class
To discover
the rat.
retard rat.
The rat. I mean, as a kid, I would be furious if someone made. If I was Christian, was that his name? Christian. I would.
Christian
be,
Mendola,
I'd
full
be
name.
like,
Google it.
Sam.
Oh no, I actually probably shouldn't, because there's not going to be loads of them, are there?
No. Because he's going to remember that.
Okay, I'll make a note that if this podcast achieves any success, I'll go back and edit out the full name. But also, he did it, so fuck him. So find him on LinkedIn. No. Oh my
It's a
god.
minefield. Hey, look, we can just start the podcast from here if we wanted to.
I mean, I think it was a nice little bit of.
Just wipe away that tear on your cheek.
Write in if you enjoyed that, or you would like less sad content in the future.
The people are just going to write and be like, Sam is a retard.
Yeah, I would really. You know what? I would really love for that not to be a trend. What have you had a nice week, Luke? What have you been watching?
I watched 3 movies.
Did you? I watched 5.
Oh, I lose again.
You lose again. Because I've watched 5.
You smashed me and your girlfriend once again, Sam. Well done.
Oh, I thought you meant like I fucked my girlfriend. I was like, why
Well,
are you talking about that?
Well, I hope you did as well.
Well, that's between me,
Be nice if you could
her,
let
and
me on some of that action.
the people
once
on
in a
either side of
while.
our very thin walls.
Oh,
I'm not
do you
gonna
guys
let you
not
in
have
on our
sex
action.
because of thin walls?
No, I'm just saying the walls are thin. I'm neither confirming nor denying whether my girlfriend and I have ever had sex,
All right.
because it would not be appropriate to talk about on a film podcast.
Sorry. Quite right. Quite right.
But who's that girl you?
No.
Sorry. Okay, I watched 5 movies. I'm going to talk about them quickly because it's too many. Well, 4 movies, and then our feature movie, which is Memoir of a Snail, which we'll get to later. Okay, I watched. Give me a number from 1 to 4, Luke.
4.
4. Between the Temples is a movie that came out last year starring Jason Schwartzman and Carol Kane. It was recommended to me by a friend of mine as one of his favourite movies of the year. And I'd never heard of it.
No, I've never heard of it either. I've heard of Between Two Ferns.
Between Two Ferns. It's quite different to Between Two Ferns, although it is also a comedy. And it stars Jason Schwartzman as a cantor. Do you know what that is?
No.
I didn't know what it is either. It's like a Jewish guy that sings in like...
Spanish.
No, in Hebrew. You know how they
that's
sing,
interesting.
you know how they sort of sing sometimes. You know how like when they like read the Torah and they like sing.
Yeah.
I think basically a synagogue. They have a rabbi, and the rabbi's like, "Hey guys, this is what's going on. This is what you should do." And then they have the cantor, and he sings a little song, but not like a song, like he sings a bit of the Torah or something.
Yeah,
like that.
okay.
Anyway, I'm pretty sure that's all exactly correct.
Yes.
And he plays a cantor who trains kids for their bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, and he's lost his voice. He can't sing. He's too self-conscious to sing.
Oh, it's from nerves? It's all psychological?
Yeah, his wife's died. His wife slipped on some ice and she died.
Oh.
And
He's old.
no, he's like Jason Schwartzman's age.
Oh, yes. I forgot.
Anyway, he meets this woman who used to be his teacher when he was at school, his art teacher, I believe. She's this older lady played by Carol Kane, and she's sort of nutty, spiritual older lady who has been, I think, Christian most of her life, but has some sort of Jewish ancestry. And it's like, I want to have a bat mitzvah. Not even I want to convert to Judaism, like I want to have a bat mitzvah. And he's like, okay, that's wacky, but fine. And it's basically... It's a comedy movie about the relationship between Jason Schwartzman and who's kind of cranky and sad and has a crisis of faith and a crisis of confidence, and then this sort of kooky, spiritual, arty older lady, and the weird friendship relationship that they have. It's sort of a bit reminiscent of like Harold and Maude or Mary and Max, which we'll talk about later. And it's like this: are they friends? Is it like a parent-child relationship? Is it going to be a romantic relationship? You're not really sure. But it's two kind of people in some amount of emotional pain in their life, finding solace in one another in a way that I found very sweet and very funny. And it's quite a sort of gentle adult comedy movie in the way that like maybe Woody Allen films were back in the day. I thought it was really smartly written and nicely performed. And I had a lovely time. I watched it with Laura and my housemate, and we all really liked it. So very much hidden gem from last year, Between the Temples. I'd recommend it.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Sounds like a metaphor for our podcast.
Why?
Two lonely souls finding solace in a not quite whack you over the head entertainment.
I've realised that I think one of the things I find like the most moving, one of the things I sort of emotionally connect to most in movies is a kind of like unlikely friendship or bond forming between sort of weird people in a weird situation. I think about a lot of my favourite movies, they've got this.
Love Leon the Pedophile.
And you know what? I genuinely might, but you've now obviously ruined the film for me based on our conversation from last week. But a lot of movies I really like World's Greatest Dad and I don't know, 8th Grade and things like that. It's just like people who don't really fitting together and finding solace and you know, not just like a couple falling in love. But like a weird relationship.
Well, there feels like something more special when it's like, an incredibly old person and a young person, and they're both misfits in their own way. And then there is
or
something...
like Ghost World with Steve Buscemi and the two
Ghost
young
World's
girls.
great. Yeah.
And also you can explore the kind of weirdness of those relationships as well, because usually there's something not quite...
But they feel more...
something unsuitable about them. Or...
Yeah, but that's what also makes the relationship feel more genuine and... insight in sort of interesting and sort of more meaningful, because it's like despite the the reasons they shouldn't be friends or feel any connection for one another.
You don't expect it, and it's like when you have like it's like when someone forms a relationship with like a teacher in their school that they're like really close to. Not fucking
careful.
But I think a lot of people have like one teacher at school that was like really special to them or important to them, or they like inspired them or made them think about this subject or whatever in a certain way. And it's like, you know, it's so set up for that not to be the case. It's like this older person and this professional relationship, and they're teaching you this thing, and it's boring, and you get in trouble and whatever. So that when you do you can sort of connect in a appropriate way through that.
Thank God, despite really all the allegations.
Yeah.
This was totally fine in the end. I always find repressed male kindness unbelievable. Like, that will make me cry.
So sorry, the man is repressed.
So it's either it's two repressed men or one repressed man.
Yeah.
But they do something very kind for each other.
Okay.
But they can't put it into words, but it's so evident
they can't say he can't say his love.
Yeah.
He can't. Yeah. But he does something which shows.
There's like a Pixar movie about it's like a gay couple, and they haven't come out to their. They go to visit the family of one of the couple.
A Pixar movie.
Yeah, it's like a Pixar short.
Oh, a short. Okay, right.
And it's a gay couple, and they go to visit the family of one of the gay couple's people.
Sorry. I'm not sure I'm getting. Is this couple gay?
This couple's gay. It's a gay couple.
What?
Two singular gay men are now unified in a.
I didn't think that was allowed.
Well, Pixar's beautiful and progressive like that. But the wacky story is one of them gets turned into a dog, and it's like very silly and fun. But at the end, they basically haven't told the dad, who's like this giant lumberjack guy, that he's gay. And then
the dad is gay.
No. The son is gay.
Dad, you're gay.
No. I was not expecting that.
I'd hate that if I had a kid. If I had a kid and they came out to me as me being gay.
It's also, I brought my boyfriend here to tell you that you are gay.
Yeah. I got to have got it from somewhere, Dad. Yeah. I didn't just pick this up.
I read something crazy about why people are gay in the New Scientist. Apparently is way higher. Like, if you're the second born son, you're more likely to be gay.
Luke, there's a 100% chance you're going to misremember this and say something hugely offensive.
No, there's not. I've got this right. This is New Scientist. This isn't even me.
There's a really good study that basically says if you have an older brother, you want to fuck him, and that makes you gay. And all gay people want to fuck their brothers, and that's in the science book. And you can't tell me I'm wrong. You know, I'm Luke Tilton.
This actually dovetails perfectly into my movie I watched this week.
Wait, no, can you make the point so it's not just me making an offensive joke?
The more brothers you have, the lower down you are in the hierarchy of age as a brother, the higher chances that you're gay.
Okay.
So if you're like fourth born son, you're more likely to be gay than
okay, but can you give a reasoning? Can you explain why this might be the case?
They don't know. They've only got theories, but their theory is that they think it might be something to do with a sort of natural population control. So
what? Like my older siblings are having enough kids. Yeah. They're having so many fucking kids already. I might as well be gay.
Well, no, so they argue that there's comparative research that also says that gay men. This is only about gay men. It's not about lesbians.
Yeah.
They just didn't do that study because I guess they're sexist. I don't know. Anyway, so apparently gay men have higher levels of empathy, generally speaking. Mm-hmm. And they believe it's so the theory goes that they're useful in communities because there'll be like an extra caring role that has lots of time because they don't have their own children to care for. So the reason biology makes gay people is so that they can be these extra empathetic like nannies, I guess, or like people to like look after other people's kids.
Luke,
this is not my theory. I read this.
The reason biology makes gay people is so they can be nannies.
This is what the scientists from New Scientists were saying.
There is okay. I'm gonna look this
they
up.
were caveating it with this is just a theory. But I read it and thought that was funny.
Where were you reading this, Luke?
In New Scientist.
You
I've
were
already
just
said that.
you had a copy of the New Scientist.
I saw that was one of the things. I was like, I'm reading that because
Okay.
where are they going with that? And that's where they went with it.
Right. I still don't feel like you've probably explained whether it's sort of a nature or a nurture. You're implying
They're saying
that,
it's nature. They're implying it's nature.
okay, but so how do your but that implies like your genes know whether you're the firstborn child or not.
Yeah. So there's differences in the theory for
There's
that.
genetic differences between
When you
firstborns
have
and fourthborn.
they were saying
kids.
when you have a baby, there's like hormones that you release to sort of
Yeah.
enable the pregnancy.
Oh, so
make
you're-
sure you're attached, but that has residual effects that
Yeah.
the body keeps in sort of memory form, so it knows how many kids you've had.
Okay.
And then there's higher levels of like certain hormones that are they believe could raise the chances of whether you're like gay or straight or not.
I would just like to say, for balance, that I feel
What do you mean for balance? This isn't a political thing.
like
This is just-
probably almost nothing of what you've said is true.
well,
But I do like
as
that
a
you've-
younger
that
brother.
you've read an
I
article
am way gayer than
and
my
you've
brother.
had a go.
I am way more homosexual than my brother, infinitely more,
Yeah.
and I'm younger than him. So,
Well,
so there's
case
that.
closed.
There's that anecdote.
QED.
I guess. Anyway, that's what I read. I thought it was that's something some people think. I guess.
Well, if you want to have sex with your older brother, write in, and we'll do. Should we start doing some double-blind control studies? I'd love it if we started paying for research with the extra money we're making from the podcast. Okay, God, this is going to be the longest episode in the world if we don't hurry up. Luke, why don't you tell me about the films that you have watched this week?
I watched Black Phone because it was on TV. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. There's not much to say. What
What
is
is Black Phone?
Black Phone is a supernatural horror / kid adventure movie. The premise is there's a serial killer, a child serial killer called the Grabber, who's grabbing. He's grabbing young boys and putting them in his basement and killing them. You find this out immediately.
Wait, he is a child.
No, he's a man.
Oh, okay.
He's
It
a
sounded
grabbing
like
man.
he was a child.
No, he's a child killer.
Okay.
He's a child killer. And then he kidnaps the main character, who is a boy. And it turns out this boy has supernatural powers.
Nice.
As does his sister.
You'd be so livid if you were that guy and you kidnapped a big ghost boy.
Yeah. Well, that is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And then it's his sister and him trying to, defeat the serial killer. It's very kind of like Stranger Things.
Right.
Or what's the other one? Like It Part 1, where it's like kids against a supernatural monster, and they all sort of, one of the kids has psychic powers and whatever. But this one's like not, like Stranger Things is quite funny,
Yeah.
as is It.
Mm-hmm.
This one's not as charming.
It's
quite
serious.
dark, yeah. And you're a bit like, this is kind of, I don't know. It feels less than those movies.
Even though I'm aware this film's like not been very well reviewed, but I have seen the poster a number of times, and it's got a picture of the child killer. I presume it's who it is on the poster. And every time I see the poster, I'm like, he looks spooky. That's a spooky guy.
Well,
and
he
so
does.
every time I see that, I'm like, I should watch that film.
Yeah.
He's spooky.
he is spooky.
And so yeah, sounds pretty great.
But it's
So what's the problem?
It's not terrible. It's just like it feels like derivative of other movies, and it's not like crazy scary,
Yeah.
but it's also not like really charming either, or like funny
Okay.
or interesting. Like, because Stranger Things, again, like it's entertaining because the characters are so great. They've got a lot of like banter going on. Whatever. This is like so serious, but is watching children be serious a lot of the time.
So you're saying watch It, and if you're hungry for more, watch It 2. And if you're hungry for more, watch the original It.
Yeah.
And if you're hungry for more, watch Black Phone.
Yeah.
I'm not watching Stranger Things, too long.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like a spin-off. It's in the same time
Of Stranger Things.
a little
Stranger
bit, like
Things
in
is
the
sort
same
of, yeah.
sort of universe. It's
Has it got the sort of
It's in
duality of the sort of kiddie funness versus the darkness?
kind of, yeah. Well, it's
Which
kind
I
of
quite
like
like.
it doesn't quite go into that as strongly, so it's kind of like that's where it should be going. So it just feels like a less good version of one of those movies, which is it doesn't go extreme enough in any direction that is like, oh, this is exciting or interesting. So it's fine. It's not. I didn't think it was like terrible. It was like quite entertaining. I watched it till the end.
To be fair, it's quite rare.
To be fair, I didn't watch the first 15 minutes of the movie because it was on TV, and I just happened to see it. But the better movie I watched, or the more interesting movie I watched, was 1980s Cruising by William Friedkin. Have you seen this movie?
No.
Okay. Mental movie. I think it has the single best premise I've seen in a movie for a while. Well, get this. Okay. It's one of Al Pacino's first movies.
Okay.
And the premise is there's a serial killer. Right?
Yeah.
Al Pacino's a cop.
Okay.
And he's got to catch the serial killer. But the catch is he has to go undercover to find this serial killer.
As a serial killer. As a lady.
No.
As a woman.
No.
As a car.
No, no.
As a baker.
The serial killer only kills men in the very extreme BDSM gay sex groups of the 1970s. So Al Pacino, a straight man,
goes undercover as a gimp.
Undercover as like a sex maniac.
Wow.
But it's kind of, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really great movie. It kind of was a little bit like
turning up at these orgies with like a leather G-string, and he's like, "I'm undercover, guys. I don't want to be here."
That is the movie. That's 100%. Is Al Pacino looking so? Because Al Pacino, you expect him to be like, "Oh baby, that's a great ass. Let's get in there. All right." And he's so not charismatic.
He's just like,
he's literally walking around looking really uncomfortable throughout the whole movie. But what's great about it is William Friedkin, which I went down such a rabbit hole, I didn't know this about.
Friedkin made Exorcist.
He made The Exorcist,
To Live and Die in LA.
To Live and Die in LA, French Connection. Yeah. But he comes from a documentary background, so everything he does, he researches insane amounts and then tries to make it as realistic as possible, which weirdly makes his films seem even less believable. Right.
Where's it set? Sorry?
It's set in 1970s. It's in America.
York?
No, I can't. I think it is New York, but I can't remember the specific borough. But it's the real, genuine borough where the leather boys used to hang out.
Right.
And they're like they're sort of very BDSM.
Yeah.
They're a minority even amongst the gay community of like being the most like sexually, whatever, into their stuff. And they all dress as like policemen and have like the big moustache and aviators and like arseless chaps. But what's amazing is because William Friedkin wants to do everything for real, they just went to a real sex club and were just like, "Do you mind if we film it?" And they're like, "No, not at all."
Oh my
Get
God.
in there. So Al Pacino is actually just walking around a genuine like gay BDSM scene.
Wow.
And so William Friedkin said it was the most, he's never spent more money trying to get a film approved by the ratings board. And he said, "Yeah, they made us cut 40 minutes of the movie, which on second glance when I looked at it did amount to hardcore gay pornography." And this has the best.
That's amazing.
It has the best.
I presume he's not gay, William Friedkin.
No. But I don't know actually. But I don't think he is. I think he's been married. But they were going to the nightclubs themselves as well. So William Friedkin said he was turning up in like his like jock strap and nothing else, just walking around being like interviewing people and stuff. And he was like,
"I am here for research."
No, but the funniest thing was he went there and he's like, "You know what? The saddest thing was I was the most hideous guy there. These guys were beautiful Adonises, and I really felt like I was ruining the vibe." But the commentary on it is so good. Like you can look it up on YouTube or whatever. Like the live commentary of the movie is hilarious because they're just talking about making it. And there's a scene where this guy who's interviewing him in the commentary is like, "So what's going on in this scene?" And he's like, "Well, that guy's getting fisted." And he was like, "And what was the rating board's problem with it?" He's like, "Well, the original shot was hardcore penetration from start to finish."
Wow. I mean, this sounds amazing. Does it work as a movie? Is Al Pacino good? Is it like a thrilling thriller? Did you enjoy it on that level?
I did enjoy. I mean, it's kind of dated. It's like it's very like 80s sort of 70s. I don't know, aesthetic to it and like pacing that I think is a bit weird now. But what was actually kind of bizarre about this was one of the most protested movies ever, by the gay community.
Wow.
So,
okay. Because it portrayed them as sort of like shady
sex freaks and which I actually felt kind of bad for William Friedkin in this because also it coincided with the AIDS crisis.
Right.
So Stonewall was at its most active, and a journalist for like a gay magazine got hold of the original script and thought it was just an exploitative trying to make gay men look like sex maniacs and murderers.
Yeah.
And I think because of that political context, they were just like, fucking no. Like, absolutely no, this can't be made now. And had it been made 10 years later, I don't think it would have been so, like, hated by the community. Because it's like there's so many... It's not, like... I wouldn't say it's excessively exploitative in the sense that it's like, aren't gay men crazy? Because there are other gay characters who are not into the scene and they're.
But I mean, if you're exploring that scene, it's quite hard to not make them look like sex-crazed maniacs because you're exploring the ones that are. Yeah,
yeah. But this is what's hard is like they were looking at a niche sliver of a community that in the general population at that point, no one knew the difference between that general sliver and the general gay community.
Yeah, I see that.
And also with AIDS coming out, everyone was like, already anti. There was loads of anti-gay sentiment. Anyway, because they were like, you're spreading disease and all this sort of stuff. So it's like a terrible time for this movie to come out.
So weirdly, one of the only movies from around that time that is probably now less offensive than it was when it came out.
Yeah, completely. But it's also really funny because apparently it was being, every time they tried to film it, protest groups are just coming out and ruining the audio by like blowing whistles and like yelling and stuff. So they had to dub the whole movie. So it sounds so weird when you're listening to it.
Yeah.
It feels like
The Room.
It feels even more dated than a 70s movie because you're like, what is up with the
I thought
audio?
it was 80s. You said
it comes out on
70s.
1980. So it was made in the 70s, but it was came out in the 80s. 1980.
Nice.
But I would say it's actually a good movie.
So you'd recommend it?
I would recommend watching
What's your
it.
favorite Friedkin movie? Because you've seen a few, right?
I love Friedkin movies. A lot of people, I understand why people don't like Friedkin's movies because they're all...
the top?
They're over the top and they all have like ambiguous endings.
Right.
So, and it's really not clear. He doesn't want to give you like, here's a message. He wants to like present... Here's some fucked up shit that is pretty much real because I've done so much research into it. Isn't that an ugly slice of humanity? There you go.
Pretty much real, this possessed girl whose head goes backwards.
Well, you say that, but it was based on real like accounts of like exorcisms and stuff. So no, I love Friedkin movie. My favorite's probably To Live and Die in LA. I think it's like
nice.
Really,
I don't know
good.
anything about that. Yeah, Friedkin's a bit of a blind spot for me. Shamefully.
But I completely understand why people hate his movies.
Yeah.
They're not like... If you don't like grubbiness, then they're like such a painful one.
I like grubbiness. And I especially like 70s, 80s New York grubby movies because things like Midnight Cowboy and stuff, where you can really see how like super grubby New York was. And it's like properly they're just filming down the streets and there just are fucking rats running down.
Rats and like fires on the street for no reason with like crackheads all around them. And you're just like, oh, cool. There is an amazing, one scene I did want to talk about in Cruising, though. There's this amazing scene which I watched and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Where they interrogate a suspect that Al Pacino thinks is like possibly the killer, and Al Pacino doesn't want to blow his cover, so they're pretending that Al Pacino is also being brought in for interrogation. And while halfway through they're interrogating this guy and they're really, really pressing him and being like awful. Out of nowhere, this giant man who must be like 6'7", hugely muscular, just comes into the police interrogation room in jockstrap and nothing else and a cowboy hat, and then just starts beating the shit out of the guy. And Al Pacino,
but you did a spanking action.
No, he's slapping. He's like slapping him either side, being like, and this guy's just
boy.
And none of the police react to him, so he'll come in, slap them, leave the room. And then whenever they get an answer they don't like or something, he'll come back in.
He is a policeman, the spankster.
You don't know. They never explain it. And the guy in the interrogation room is like, who is this guy? Who is he? And they won't react to this guy coming in at all. And
we can't see anyone there. No. What are you talking about?
And Al Pacino goes into
someone of that description died 10 years ago.
But it's complete, and like when you're watching it, you're also like, what is going on? This can't be this needs to be explained to me because this is such an insane spectacle.
Yeah.
And the movie does not explain it. Like, Al Pacino goes into the other room and is like, bro, you fucking slapped me around. Why'd you really hit me? And he's like, it's got to seem real. But it turns out it's a real thing that the police used to do in the 70s.
Right.
So, and what they'd do is they'd get something... If they wanted to really rattle someone, they would create such a spectacle that it wouldn't be believed in court. So they would do things like either get like a complete, like they were like, oh yeah, so they had the arseless, they had the jockstrap guy with the cowboy hat, who's giant, and like, yeah, he came in and slapped you around. Or they had other ones where it's like a guy dressed as a clown beating them with like clown like paraphernalia or something.
That's so mad.
But apparently it was a really common tactic in the 70s.
Yeah, but surely if it was that common, the courts should start being like, it's weird how all these people keep making up that the clown is beating them up in the interrogation room. They've got like a fucking dressing up box in the back office. They're like, we need to do something different.
What is this?
Yeah.
But the film is like, it does not hold your hand in those sort of scenes. So it's just like, here it is. And then leaves, and you're like, what was the point in that scene? And then you find out it's real, but it actually makes the film feel less believable.
Right.
But I think it's worth a watch. I think it's good.
Nice.
I enjoyed it.
I might check that out.
Yeah, and it's really funny. Apparently, Al Pacino hated filming it because every day he was walking in, he was just getting protested by thousands of people, and then being made to go to sex parties that he wasn't into.
That's so funny.
Apparently, for one of his other movies, The French Connection, there's a stunt scene where they like drive through real traffic at like 90 miles an hour without any permits. So they just drove through real streets.
It's the 70s.
But apparently, the way he convinced the stunt driver to do it was he just got him really drunk and called him a pussy.
Wow.
And it won him loads of awards or whatever, because it was like the most intense chase scene, whatever. And he's chasing a train in the scene. And apparently the way he got them to allow him to hijack the train in the movie was he just paid off one of the drivers enough money to retire to Jamaica with. So they actually hijacked the train for real.
What?
With like people in the train. And we're just like, can we just drive it down? Get some shots of the guy with the gun in the thing. He's like completely insane.
This is definitely true.
Yeah.
They hijacked an actual train. What? But wouldn't they go to prison?
Apparently not. Just fired. Well, I don't know about William Friedkin, but
yeah. No, I'm not talking about the train driver.
Well, I guess it's not a hijacking. They've paid him to,
okay,
and they've, I assume they've maintained the schedule as
close
to as they possibly could.
Okay, wow. Well, you've not left me very much time to talk about my films, Luke.
Sorry, but you've got 9 films to talk about.
So, Of Unknown Origin, movie in 1983, starring Peter Weller. It is a psychological horror about rats.
Oh, gross.
And it's funny, I was just talking about rats in New York, because this is about rats in New York. And it's specifically about one guy who gets one rat in his flat.
What?
And it's about, can the man get rid of the rat?
Wait, so it's like Mouse Hunt.
It's like Mouse Hunt,
but horror.
But a horror, yeah. It's exactly that. Now, this is not like a great movie, okay? There's a lot of really stupid stuff in it. The special effects are crap. The ending's very anticlimactic. But it's sort of a good, fun kind of 80s horror romp. But the thing I really did actually love about it is, although the rat in his apartment is like a giant rat.
How big are we talking here?
Well, it's really funny because they show close-ups of the rat, and it's clearly just them showing like close-ups of like a normal rat. And it shows it's like got big yellow teeth. Sometimes it have like blood dripping from the teeth. Yeah. It's like really disgusting, creepy, horrible. But then anytime you need to see the rat in the actual place, the rat is like a rat puppet the size of a dog. Just like clearly like a big rat toy that someone stitched together, that someone is just holding and going and shaking around. It's the worst special effects. It's Peter Weller's going like,
I gotta say, this is one thing I like about like 80s movies, particularly horror movies, like because everything's practical. Yeah, and it's really like the high point of like animatronics and stuff, which I do think animatronics either is the best special effects ever, or the worst.
Yeah. I don't think this is anything as sophisticated as animatronics. I think it's literally just like shaking a big teddy around, basically.
Well, exactly. That's lowbrow animatronics.
And it's very silly, but I had a good time. And what I particularly loved about it is, although the rat is giant, for the vast majority of the film, the size of the rat is not really relevant. And for most of it could just be about a movie about a guy who has one rat in his house.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, the rat is like extra bad and it will like eat all the traps and it is like unrealistic. But a lot of the movie and the fear and the disgust is like very real feeling. And it is, we had mice in our last house and it was just so horrible. And, you see your fucking food be eaten and you find like a rotting mouse and like all these. And like,
when you hear them in the walls.
And you hear them in the walls and scratching around. And it is like a horror movie. It's like you can't imagine how horrible it is until you're living it. And this movie, most of the movie is just a guy dealing with having a rat in his flat and he's going insane. And it's like, this is horrible. It's like terrifying and tense and awful.
Could the special effects and like the oversized rat sort of just it's just an exploration of fear? It's like his perception of the rat.
I mean, it's not that smart, but I mean, you could claim that, but that's not
true.
That's not what's happening.
No.
I thought it was really interesting. Just like, I don't know, you see so many horror movies that are kind of about the same thing as a ghost, as a murder or whatever. This is just like a guy doing the fucking rat, and it's so gross, it's so horrible, and it is like, your skin crawls as you like see it kind of scuttling around.
One room.
I mean, he goes out, but a lot of the movie is set in this one apartment. There's an amazing scene where he's like at a really sophisticated work dinner with all his colleagues. Everyone's in suits, and they're talking about, the report's due on the next quadrant, and he starts being like, do you know how many rats there are in New York? And he just goes on this like rant about how disgusting rats are, and everyone like stops eating their food because they're so gross out. And he's going insane. It's like the episode of Breaking Bad with the fly where he can't think about anything else. It's very silly. It's
sounds great.
Oh yeah, if you want to like get stoned and watch like a stupid 80s horror, you could do a lot worse. It's not an amazing film, but I had a good time.
That's what it's about.
Two other movies I saw very quickly. Cuckoo, another horror movie, came out last year. Got sort of mixed critical response, but some people said it was one of their favorite horror movies of last year. It is, I'm sorry to say, not that good. It's interesting. It's got a weird vibe. It's about the 17-year-old girl who moves in with her dad after her mum dies and his family in this weird resort in Germany.
Is cuckoo as in like the cuckoo bird?
Cuckoo as in the cuckoo bird, and that becomes irrelevant as the movie goes on. So it ends. You don't know what kind of horror movie it is at the beginning. It turns out being a sort of supernaturally monstery horror movie. You could maybe say that's sort of a bit of a spoiler, but I don't know. I'd imagine it's the sort of thing that would be clear from the trailers. It's an interesting kind of monster villain design. What it does is like it's quite original, but it's quite kind of confusing trying to figure out like what's supposed to be happening, and not in a sort of an exciting. I didn't find it an exciting mystery. I found it sort of frustrating, and then you kind of figure it out by the end of the movie. And there are some good bits and some spooky bits, but it feels like a lot of interesting ideas that haven't really cohered into a great movie. So if you're a massive horror fan and want to see something a bit different, I'm sure there's some people that would enjoy it. But it was. I thought it was.
It's like kind of a good premise, not executed well.
Yeah, I think the performances were great, and even I think the script needed improving on, and there are things like there's this recurring thing that happens where the main character like sees things happen multiple times before something bad happens, and you think that's going to be like the main thing of the movie, and then it's just this like little side thing, and it like barely seems connected to everything else that's happening. And it's it's one of those movies that's written and directed by one guy, and it's like, I think you needed a few more people to be like,
or it's the Phantom Menace.
This bit's a bit stupid, and the auteur problem. So not my favorite there, Cuckoo. Last thing I saw, documentary from 2009 called We Live in Public, which I saw someone discuss in an interview with Kaveh Zahedi, who's this filmmaker who makes this amazing web series called The Show About the Show, which I don't have time to get into. But he's sort of, this guy Kaveh Zahedi that I heard talk about it is, makes lots of stuff about documentaries about like truth and exposing yourself on camera. And this documentary, We Live in Public, is very much about that. So it's from 2009, but it's about this American entrepreneur, artist, businessman called Josh Harris, who basically had loads of crazy ideas for internet projects in the like late 90s and early 2000s. And it basically goes through his crazy internet projects, and they're all to do with living in public and exposing yourself online. So he invented this
before
like
Instagram and all that.
Way before all of that. So what's funny about it is the movie kind of portrays him as this like incredible like pioneer, because he basically invented like a version of Twitch like a decade before Twitch came out and all these things. But the thing is, the internet couldn't support any of these things. Like the bandwidth wasn't fast enough. So everyone was like, wow, this is amazing. And God, he was so ahead of his time. And it's like, yeah, but the reason Twitch didn't come out 10 years ago is not because 10 years before, it's not because no one had the idea, it's because it wasn't feasible. So he kept making all these things that just didn't work. Or they worked, but like not well enough, and he couldn't make any money out of them. But he kind of claims throughout the movie that they're sort of art projects more than businesses he actually expected to succeed.
Right.
But they're really interesting. Like there's one that he does, which is...
That's always good that you have that option when your business fails.
Yeah.
It was an art project. Don't worry, guys.
He hires out this huge underground bunker and pays like 100 people. Not pays them, but tells like gets 100 people.
I've seen this.
Oh, right?
It's like a precursor to Big Brother.
Yeah. Gets like 100 people to live in this big bunker together, and they get free food and free drink, and they live there for free. Yeah. But in return, they have to let their entire lives, including like sex and shitting and showering, be filmed.
They're like living in little pods.
Living in little pods.
Japanese style.
Have you seen this whole documentary?
Yeah. I saw it ages ago, though. Yeah, and he, because he started posting like with his partner.
And then after the bunker eventually gets shut down, and then he starts living with his girlfriend and posting that all online. It's like a 24/7 thing. There's like a camera in the toilet so you can see him poo. Yeah. And I'm obsessed with the poo. And
because he becomes a bit of a cult figure. He becomes like a cult hero kind of to people really and maybe wouldn't go in the bunker. He's got this kind of cult leaderish status. And it's a really interesting like precursor to the way we all live our lives now. And they try and draw lots of comparisons, and some of them are sort of overreaching slightly. Like I don't think he was actually, that pivotal a figure. I think he was a guy who had some crazy ideas that weren't going to work properly, but they're pretty interesting. And I think there is something, the thing that kind of made me think about it, and they make this point, and it's maybe not as profound as they thought it was, but I still found it interesting, is like, it's basically questioning like, would you go and live in this pod city where everything is filmed and put online, and you get nothing out of it apart from being able to do it? You're not paid or anything. And obviously as a viewer, you're like, no, that sounds awful, I'd never do that. And then it kind of makes the point of like, but now we're putting everything online, and we're uploading, we're posting on Facebook, and we're giving all our stuff to these social media platforms, and we're selling our data. And this movie came out in 2009, so this is definitely like way ahead of its time. It's not the same, and it's not. I don't think it's a perfect analogy, but I do think it is interesting. As someone who generally is like, kind of doesn't give that much of a shit about privacy and data and things like that it did make me think about the slow kind of creep of what we are willing to give away, and how it's interesting that I still think I have these like strong boundaries of not wanting to reveal yourself. Well, I always think there's something really fascinating about watching, because I would say 2009, 2008, that's a genuine, significant technology hasn't been invented that has had huge social change yet.
Yeah, well,
So
YouTube is
everything
just
is
kicking off.
speculative.
Facebook is just
Yeah.
kicking off, but no one really knows.
Yeah, no one's expecting
future
it
of the
to
internet.
influence elections or
Yeah.
become like social media influencers. No one thought about being famous for like absolutely no reason whatsoever other
Yeah.
than you're on a screen somewhere. And how that affects people's goals and life ambitions and, you know, what a job is and all this sort of stuff. But I always find it fascinating because it is really interesting to watch a genuinely just speculative perspective on something
Right.
that you've then lived through.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like there's some amazing stuff of like John Maynard Keynes, who was like the guy. He was like one of the
Brainheads.
the brainheads. Yes, the heads of the brain. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say. He was one of the
In
clever guys.
Futurama, in the Jaws.
He like did the New Deal in the Great Depression. He was like one of the masterminds that helped America get out of it. But he was talking about things like speculating on things that effectively are Instagram and suggesting that they would become a thing in the future because of the way, you know, sort of the economy would go and certain technologies that eventually got invented. But obviously loads of it's wrong.
Yeah.
But he is also sort of getting there. And then there is like, I think it's genuinely insightful to look back at the fears that people had in those sort of days, because it's like, this is a genuinely like unplugged generation speculating about a completely online generation. And that's fascinating because it's not that long ago.
Well, I agree with that. And there's a book that I am interested to read, which I think is from the 80s. And I think it's called We're Entertaining Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman or something like that. And people reference it all the time. I think Maron talks about it on his podcast quite a lot. But it was like and I just find it interesting because it was clearly written of its time, and yet people think it's so relevant today. And it was written about TV more than the internet, but it was about this idea of just like media kind of consuming our attention and our every waking thought, and
like David Foster Wallacey.
Yeah, and it just seems like all the points that, from what I understand about it, all the points that were made then are just like even more true today. And it was kind of fascinating to see people realize that was the direction we're headed in before even understanding what the technology could be. Knowing that is what the direction of the technology is going in, and for them to predict that and to see it get worse over time. But I've not read it, so I don't read. Reading's for losers. As
Black Phone.
You can watch a movie.
Cuckoo.
Those are all the movies I have seen this week.
That was a great job. You summarized those in like no time.
Between the Temples was my fave, but I enjoyed We Live in Public. It was interesting, and Of Unknown Our Origin was fun. And anyway, I've said all that already.
Nice.
Cuckoo, I wouldn't bother with. Right.
That's our main movie.
Main movie time.
Memoir of a Snail.
Memoir of a Snail. New movie. It's just come out by Adam Elliott, an Australian animator who has made one movie before, Mary and Max, which came out in 2009, I believe. This is his new movie. It took him over 5 years to write and direct, hand mold all the clay. It's a claymation movie.
That's crazy.
He has a disability. I can't actually remember what it is, but he has this sort of signature wonky style where everything looks a bit kind of wonky and silly and weird.
He is made of clay.
And his disability is he is clay. It gives all his films and stuff a certain look. Mary and Max is one of my favourite movies ever. He also made amazing short films like Harvey Crumpet and Ernie Biscuit, also great. Tend to like follow the lives of kind of sad characters. It's an adult animation, definitely not for kids. A lot of darkness in the movie.
This is scary.
Luke, as someone who has not seen any of Adam Elliott's previous work, as an Elliott virgin, what did you think of Memoir of a Snail?
Oh boy, did I get fucked by Elliott in clay motion stop and start fashion. No, I sort of was semi-aware of his stuff because I've seen pictures of like Crumpet and all that sort of stuff going around and been like, what is that? But never actually delved into it. I mean, the animation is incredible. Like genuinely like possibly some of the best claymation I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's not as sort of I guess like as polished as something like Aardman, who do.
No, but it works so well for what it's about. It
Yeah,
feels
but
so
that's my point.
intentional.
It's really beautiful. It's a very distinct style. He uses colors very intentionally and minimally. It's beautiful. I think.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of beautiful. I mean, it's also hideously ugly.
Oh yeah.
But it's kind of like it's so charming as well,
It's
which
grotesque.
kind of it is completely grotesque. But it reflects also the story of the character in this one. I think is also kind of grotesque but endearing and charming at the same time. Which it's a perfect like I don't know, background for it, I guess.
Yeah, the aesthetics match the tone.
Yeah, and
really well.
I wouldn't say it's like an easy watch in the sense it's such a bleak story for 90% of it.
Yeah,
but then it's offset with because the actual script it is a memoir. Like she is literally reading.
Yeah,
narrating.
We should say it's the story of this young girl. She's narrating it.
To her snail Sylvia. So it's not the actual story of a snail. It's the life of this girl up to the point in which she's narrating. And she narrates her life story, and you hear about her parents and her sibling and all these different characters and things that go on. Sorry. So it is very literally a memoir of this person's life. And it's so pretty much everything she says is tragic and sad or like really like, oh, but then it's offset with these sort of great visual gags from the claymation and the charm, which sort of just about enables it to be like, all right, I'll keep going.
Yeah.
Because that was quite charming or whatever. And then you're just like, oh, fuck, okay, now that's happening.
Right.
Okay, I guess. And now she's feeling like this, and you're like, oh yeah, I guess you would. But it is charming, like the whole way through. I would say it's charming. And I like that. I kind of thought at parts of it, I was like, we've spoken a lot about like there's really gritty British dramas that are really realistically acted,
just unrelentingly bleak.
Yeah. I was sort of like, okay, it's kind of one of those, but Australian, and also completely like the fact it's animated completely removes a lot of the bleakness that would be there had this just been one-to-one representation of reality, whereas this is so abstracted because
I would say those British ones tend to be like hyper real.
They're almost documentaries.
And that's what's painful about the bleakness. Whereas this is more is closer to like not a fairy tale because it is quite grounded, but it is silly and over the top and unrealistic at the same time. So it's not. I wouldn't. But
it's like the old people look so old, and ridiculous, and like they're hilarious. So I really enjoyed it. I didn't find it an easy watch, and I imagine some people would not enjoy it at all. Because it's like you have to get over. A lot of people don't like animation in general. I love animation, so that's like a big plus for me.
But I think...
And then it's so bleak as well, which is also going to be a barrier to people. But then I think it has like a message of hope to it, and there are nice things that do happen in bits of it. So it's not just a complete like, let's beat you up with this sad story and, leave you on the ground. It's pro-life. But no,
it's not pro. Pro-life has a meaning.
No, that's really what I got from it.
It was an anti-abortion.
It's really never get abortions. No, that's is that good enough?
Yeah.
Did I do my bit?
Yeah. That's great. I'm glad you liked it. Marion Max is, like I said, his previous movie, one of my favorite movies ever. And has a lot in common with this. It's like the story of this girl's life. That movie's narrated, although it's a third-person narrator, not a first-person narrator in Marion Max. Marion Max, also very bleak, probably not quite as bleak as Memoir of a Snail. Memoir of a Snail, I think, takes it to the next level of bleakness.
It's even more Elliot than Elliot was before.
I would say this is... I agree with you. I would recommend Marion Max to most people. I think Marion Max is fantastic. I will say I love this movie. I thought Memoir of a Snail was fantastic. I was totally enraptured. I thought it looked beautiful. I thought the writing was amazing. I was crying my eyes out at the end. I was bawling.
Yeah, me too.
I thought it was beautiful and powerful, and I liked it probably about as much as Mary and Max. I might slightly prefer Mary and Max, but you know the animation has taken a step up, and I love both of them. But you are right. It's very bleak. It's very dark throughout, and I think you're better off starting with Mary and Max. And if that's a bit much for you, don't bother with Memoir of a Snail because this gets bad. I think people who have like a bias against animation is just crazy, and it's because animation hasn't been used as. It's basically just been seen as this sort of kids' art form.
I'd just like to remind you that last week you're like, all anime sucks.
Oh, anime sucks. but no, I love animation. And
yeah, I think animation
it can be used with so much stuff. And when there's like adult animation that comes out, things like Anomalisa and things like that, I'm so excited for it. That movie Mad God, which is this crazy stop motion thing that came out a couple of years ago.
I saw that. That was, yeah.
I mean, it wasn't it wasn't an amazing sort of film narratively, but it was this beautiful thing. Anyway, animation can do so much. If you're turned off by animation, you're closed-minded.
Apart from anime, you're a fucking gross.
Well, no, I've watched lots of anime and it's bad. I don't think it's not for me. I think, I do admit that there is like a certain thing about Adam Elliott's films that particularly appeal to me. There's that thing I was talking about earlier about this kind of unlikely friendships and relationships that form in difficult scenarios, which is sort of like catnip for me. I love that. And I also deeply love the sort of aesthetic, the style, I don't really know what to call it, of this kind of clash of childlike imagery and storytelling with dark adult themes.
Yeah.
And I find that there's something so powerful about that, because the sort of childlike fairy tale nature of the thing kind of gets into your subconscious. You feel like you're a kid. Your parents are reading a story to you. You're not kind of cynically looking at it in the way you see stuff as an adult. You feel like a kid again, and then you're hit with themes of suicide and depression and alcoholism and drug use and domestic abuse and like fucking mad stuff I've hardly even stuff I've hardly even seen in other movies, death and dementia and almost everything you could think of. And it is so, and then dark imagery it just like it's like a shortcut to my gut, to my soul.
I think you're right.
Somehow.
It's like the abstraction of animation, and sort of, particularly if it's sort of childish.
Yeah,
in a sense.
that's the other
thing. It completely lowers your guard, and also it removes, we were talking about what was the September 5, and we were saying because there's always a context of reality there, it does somewhat impact the way you're watching the movie. Or even cruising, when you watched it matters. Whereas a cartoon or an animation or something like this feels almost completely timeless because it's put in this abstract, different reality almost, and it sort of removes all of the, your political allegiance. It just sort of becomes in a weird way more humane and more universal.
It captures something specific about. The world or about human nature or something, rather than being this kind of actual representation.
It lets you take a step outside of your social context and be a bit, or it eases that process, which I always think is okay, well, now you have the potential now to get to something so deep.
And I just find it really powerful. I also just love it on a kind of aesthetic level. Anything else that does that, I was trying to think of other examples. There's a old writer called Edward Gorey who wrote little really disturbing children's books. He wrote this thing called the Gashly Crumb Tinies, which is a kid's alphabet book, but each letter is a child who's died, and it's A is for Adam, who fell down the stairs. B is for Betty, devoured by bears, and but they're really dark, scratchy pencil drawings in black and white, and it's who is this for? And there's something about
Because it's like
it's
too grown up for kids.
It's too grown up for kids, but like, what is this?
Childish for adults.
And the way Mary and Max and the way Memoir of a Snail is narrated and stuff, it is like really simple language, and it is like, and yet the movies are 15, right?
But it's also like the spotlight being on someone's life who is so tragic and unfair, and also kind of herself. Like there is something, I don't know. There's something that feels very important about watching something like that, where it's not like it is challenging though at the same time. In the sense, it's like you're just gonna watch this person's life who's like incredibly unfair, and suck it in, and it's almost not an exercise in entertainment. It's like it actually feels like very meaningful.
Yes,
which is, I don't know, special, I guess. That's when you're moving into like more. This is art rather than like, or this is really saying something rather than. There's so many like hero's journey stories or like entertainment as aspirational, and this is literally just like let's just look at this person for a bit.
Yes, it's a very simple person who lives a very mundane, yet hugely painful life.
But it's also like the kind of person who people wouldn't even think about. You'd probably walk past them on the street and be like, ugh. That. Or they're completely invisible. And then it's like, no, this is actually... A lot of people do live lives like this.
Exactly. And it you know what? It felt very real. And although it's not a true story, I believe a lot of things probably are taken from real life. Like the main character, her dream is to be an animator. And and go to animation school, which is what Adam Elliott did.
Does he not base his stuff on like people he knows normally?
I don't know, but a lot of it feels like stuff that you can imagine is taken. You know, it's from small town Australia, and I think he grew up originally in small town Australia before moving to Melbourne. And maybe let's get into spoilers in a second. But I thought it was beautiful, funny. Tragic. Like maybe the only criticism I'd really give is like it did feel like maybe a little bit verging on almost sort of torture porny levels of bleakness at some points, and then also I think there is a thing where the whole movie is just this person narrating, and then I met this person, then I did this, and and the kind of I don't know. There's not a kind of total
you don't really get scenes, or at least very long scenes, where it's two characters being them. It's like all told to you.
Yes, I think it's the sort of thing that, you know what, Mary and Max is 90 minutes and this is 100 minutes, and I think like if this was 2 hours, it probably would feel too long. But you know, this is me trying to be professional and find things to maybe be critical about it. My overwhelming feeling was that I had an amazing time and cried my eyes out, and will, after a long break, watch it again and imagine love it just as much. And I would say everyone should go out and definitely watch Mary and Max. You can also watch his short films online for free. They're great and give you a good idea of what they're...
I had an embarrassing moment when watching this because I started crying and my mum came in and was like, "What are you doing?"
Me and Laura cried together and it was lovely.
Which bit?
Just like the whole of the end. Like the last 10 minutes of the movie, just crying our eyes out. Okay, we'll get into spoilers for Memoir of a Snail starting now. I think when the moment where I was like, oh God, I think this might be too much for me, is when the brother is seemingly burned alive in the chapel after every bad thing that has happened.
She shuts the door.
And the evil mother shuts the door on the brother on like the day before her wedding. It's so bleak.
Because it is sort of suggested that before as well, because she was like,
It's the last time I saw...
She says that right at the beginning.
But you're kind of hoping maybe something will... But no, it happens. And then when it turns out he's alive in the end, again, if I was like engaging the critical part of my brain, there's maybe a tiny part of me who was like, was thinking, oh, that's sort of maybe a little neat,
Yeah.
or like, oh yeah,
You really
everything's
tricked me
everything's
into
fine
that.
now.
Yeah.
But when it did happen, I just burst into tears and cried nonstop for the rest of the film. So yeah, like, you know, if I wanted to be kind of snarky and find fault with it, I maybe could, but it totally. That's the thing with I guess that's going back to it being the kind of like childlike fairy story thing. You kind of maybe give it some leniency that you wouldn't give a movie that you're expecting to be a totally coherent, perfectly like written plot.
Yeah.
If something a bit out of the ordinary comes and saves the day, you sort of give it that leniency, and
but there is
I
also
find it really
such
moving.
a powerful entertainment factor from how good the animation is alone. Just from an aesthetic perspective, it's so powerful that you're like, wow, this is great. Like, I don't know, it's a kind of different realm of what's good and bad. You know, I think because of that element of it that adds a fantasy twist to it.
Yeah, with movies like that, I just at any moment I can just step out of what I'm seeing and just think, God, this scene was just one guy moving bits of things a millimeter at a time for weeks of his life, and that just blows me away.
Well, I mean, I get it with sort of cartoons as well. There's an element of like, your rules are different to a regular movie.
yeah,
in terms of what's quality and what's not.
Yeah,
but that's just to me like, that's just like genres.
Yeah. I also cried my eyes out at the card that Pinky left. What's the main character's name?
Snail.
Snail.
I actually can't remember.
I can't remember her name. Gracie.
Gracie.
The card that so Gracie has one friend, this old lady called Pinky, who dies, and then leaves Gracie a card with basically being like, you know, live life to the full, and you know, it is probably like overly sentimental, and it probably is cliched, and it probably is saying something you've heard a million times before in other things, but in the context of all the pain and suffering she's been through, and in the context of their relationship, I was just found it like overwhelming and
it feels like a
beautiful
relief after, because I really wasn't sure if they were going to give us like a hopeful ending, and because it is so extremely cruel throughout the whole thing. You're like, maybe this is just a cruel movie.
You know, we've been scarred by movies like Requiem for a Dream and things like that. And I think that's what, you know, I've talked about it before, like movies that are just like happy don't make me happy. Because they're I just don't believe it. But movies that give me like a lot of bleakness and then are like, here's your morsel of beauty that in some way cuts through the squeeze of lemon that cuts through the fattiness of bleakness and everything that's come, is so much more powerful.
Little Miss Sunshine.
Little Miss Sunshine.
The start is just like, oh my god, everyone's depressed and suicidal. And then they come together with the most like shit beauty pageant ever, and you're like, like,
and I think it's because, like, you know, life. You know, I don't think life is unrelentingly bleak, but it is pretty like, you know, you don't spend that much of life having beautiful, amazing, happy moments.
I think everyone, even just by the sort of nature of like relativity, is like, you will feel moments of bleakness in your life that feel monumentally unfair, and cruel and brutal, and there's nothing that can be done. Which a lot of movies just try to avoid. They're much more geared towards escapism rather than like, let's confront that. Which I think if you do confront it and you do it well, the emotional payoff is way better. And if you do it badly, then it's very not fun.
There's clearly so much that can be done with animation, and I find myself so excited and also frustrated by like art forms that I see as underutilized. I think it's one of the things
it's a pain in the... It's so much work.
Well, I'm hoping that the sort of AI and technology revolution finds ways for people to make animation in a more cost-effective way.
Well, because it's sort of moved that, because there's something like, I love the way like Akira or like certain anime look when it's got this really fluid sort of, but still hand drawn. Studio Ghibli's like amazing for that, but then
beautiful.
They've really brought in more and more sort of CGI stuff to aid it, and it always looks kind of shit. But there is some sort of magic loss, or even something like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The animation's so good, and it looks incredible, and it holds up for. I mean, it's so cartoony that it's sort of timeless, but it looks better than a lot of modern stuff. But it's a one-off project with a big budget, so it can be that.
But there's so much like. I think Anomalisa is an amazing example because I don't think have you seen Anomalisa? A Charlie Kaufman movie from a few years ago who did like Synecdoche, New York, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and that's like a stop motion movie where all the characters have the same face and they're all voiced by the same person except for one person who's like different, and it just is like was such a creative use of animation, and it's a movie that could not have been made not as an animation, and it just makes you realize the world of movies that could be made that are no one's even really thinking about movies in that way unless they're fucking kids films or new Spider-Man animations that like and I know it's like practical, but I think it's partially practical, but I think actually the bigger issue is people's biases against it, because it's there is still loads of animated kids films, animated cartoons being made. So there is commercial viability for animation. It's just that it has this link to
adult animation
kids stuff, which is like there's literally no reason apart from historically, like.
But kids stuff sells better. But that's also like family stuff in general will sell better because it's a much bigger market than just to adults who can only go themselves. It's just like, all right, well, a family is potentially 5 people. So obviously that's a bigger, and toys and everything else that you can spring merch off the back of it. But I do agree with you. It's such a shame because also I think there's something with animation that also requires so much care that then it's like even something for like The Lion King, having to draw someone's face. You have to think about every emotion that goes through it for every character, and someone has to draw that and think about how will this travel to that, and what will and you have to actually think he's going from jealousy to anger to catching it to then pretending like it's okay, and you don't really have to think about that with acting. The actor just does that for you, whereas this is like the writer has to be in sync with the animator to be in sync with the script writer to be in sync with the director. And it's so planned, so carefully thought out.
Well, you just have Adam Elliott be all of those people.
Well,
there's some great moments in the movie where they use the animation in and of itself for jokes. So like there's like a certain like facial expressions that he like reuses for characters. He does this in all his movies. There's one where they sort of purse their lips out a bit like a bumhole, like if you're watching on camera. And there's like one scene where people, I don't even remember what's happening, but the characters are supposed to be sad or upset, and they all for a second do the face, and it's really funny. And it's just like all these little things, the different ways you can make a joke, or the different ways you can portray emotion, or the different ways you can tell a story with animation that you can't do. Suddenly, you watch a movie like this and you're like, God, making a movie just filming actual real life is kind of bizarrely constraining. Like, it's mad that most movies are like this, because it's like, oh God, you got to fucking deal with real life all the time. Whereas this guy can fucking mold a figure of anything he wants, make people move in any way they want. And that possibility always really excites me with any art form. Like that's one of the things that got me into stand-up, is I was like, it's just a person and a microphone. And although there's like all these conventions of like what stand-up is and that most people follow, it's like there's no reason it has to be any of those things. And although I quite liked the idea getting into stand-up that I would be like a good version of what stand-up is to most people, what excited me even more was like, you could, a person and a microphone, you could do anything. And as long as you're sort of being funny in a way, like there's no reason you have to have these kind of stick to these traditional ideas of what setup is and what a punchline is.
I like talking about dating and my penis.
Yeah, Luke likes talking about dating in his penis, which I think is revolutionary. I've actually never seen it be done before.
Suck it, Adam Elliott.
He's
It's too aggressive.
I'm sure he would suck it.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know. He probably wouldn't.
Oh, all right. Let's finish.
Okay.
On that note.
Let's finish on that note. What were you going to watch? Write in. Please write us an email. Fleapitpod@gmail.com. Follow us. Tell your friends about this. I mean, we need to start marketing the podcast if we're honest. If we're honest with ourselves, that needs to happen.
But maybe you need to market this podcast.
Maybe get in touch with us if you'd be willing to do some free or at least
highly exploitative labor for us.
As a massive fan of ours. All right. I forgot what we were reviewing next week. Do you remember?
No, I can't remember. I'm sure it's great.
It's gonna be great. Thank you, everyone. Have lovely lives. Goodbye forever.